Hello and welcome back to the Music Subjective. So today let's have a chat about cover versions, shall we? So let's go straight in and let's look at Iron Maiden. At one time were doing the B-sides of their singles as cover versions. I'm sure a lot of you know that. It's quite interesting to see the range of songs that they did. There was things like Women in Uniform, was also Cross-Eyed Mary. They'd done a version of the Jethro Tull song. Not a bad job of it either, I should say. I Got the Fire, which was a Montrose song. Again, they've done quite a good version of that. They done Massacre by Thin Lizzy, Doctor UFO. They had a go at, and if you've seen Iron Maiden, you'll know they actually come out on stage to that song as well. They also done King of Twilight, which was by a band called Nectar, a 1970s prog band. Great prog band, actually. I have here a Nectar box set. And the King of Twilight track was on the album Tavern the Ocean. Yeah, this Iron Maiden doing a 70s prog track. Steve Harris influence there because Steve Harris, as you may or may not know, is a huge prog fan and especially a Jethro Tull fan. So the only thing I would say, Iron Maiden did do a cover version of the melodic rock band FM. They had a song which was That Girl. They done a cover version on the B-side of their Strange and Strangeland single, which was the second song from the album of the same name. And I must say it's probably the worst song I've heard Iron Maiden do. They done, in my opinion, That Girl is a melodic rock song and they tried to turn it into a bit more of a metal song. And if I'm honest, I think it's awful with it. But that's just my opinion. If anybody thinks otherwise, do please comment, but just my opinion. And sticking with the Iron Maiden theme, in a manner of speaking, which will say, well, you'll see why. Anthrax, they've done a song called Antisocial, which was a cover of a song by the French band Trust. The reason I say the Iron Maiden connection is because both Clive Burr and Nico McBrain have both drummed with Trust. Nico McBrain first, he left to join Maiden. Clive Burr went the other way to join Trust in 1983. Trust toured with Iron Maiden, and they had this album which was Repression. Excellent album this is. They sung in French a lot of the time. This album's actually in English in the main. You can see the first track on there was Antisocial, and it was a song that Anthrax covered for their fourth album, State of Euphoria. Probably Anthrax made it better known than the original band Trust did, but nevertheless, it is a Trust song. Moving on to Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath on their first album had two cover versions, which was Evil Woman, which was originally by a band called Crow, who were from Minneapolis in the States, and they were more of a bluesy rock band. Their version is a little bit more upbeat, and I believe included horns and whatever than the Sabbath version, but nevertheless, Evil Woman by Black Sabbath is actually a cover version from the band Crow. Sabbath's version, as I said, was on their first album, released in 1969, and Crow's version was also 1969, very shortly after Sabbath did cover that track. The other cover version that Sabbath had got on the first album is, in fact, The Warning, which was done by Ainsley Dunbar's Retaliation. Of course, Sabbath's version of The Warning was on their first album, released in 1970. Ainsley Dunbar's Retaliation recorded it in 1967. And, of course, next, Lenny Kravitz, his 1999 hit, American Woman, which was featured on Austin Powers, and I believe on the original soundtrack. American Woman was actually written by a band called The Guess Who in 1970, and it featured on an album of the same name. The Guess Who actually featured Randy Bachman, who was later probably better known in BTO or Bachman Turner Overdrive. Okay, now the band Heart. Heart had a massive hit with the song Alone. It's absolutely huge all over the world. It was originally recorded by a band called I-10 back in 1983. There was a subsequent cover version which was used on an American sitcom called Dreams, but it was Heart that really took this song and turned it into their own. Turned it into a rock power ballad, and of course I think it's the version that the majority of people would know today. And of course they did make the song absolutely huge. And of course Alone featured on Heart's album Bad Animals, which was from 1987, which was 4 years after the original. Led Zeppelin have done a couple of cover versions, especially in the early days. And Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You is also a cover version. They covered the Joan Baez version, or they used the Joan Baez version as the inspiration of Jimmy Page did. But the song itself was written by somebody called Anna Breeden in the 1960s. When Zeppelin first credited the song on their first album, they originally put down it was a traditional mix, but on later albums, once Anne Breeden had found, and I don't think this was until the 80s that they'd actually covered one of her songs, she eventually got credited on later versions of the album along with Page and Plant. Rod Stewart's big hit of Sailing was also a cover version. That was originally done by the Sutherland Brothers, or if you know of Sutherland Brothers and Quiver, they done In the Arms of Mary, which was a huge hit. But yeah, so the same people done Sailing. The Sutherland Brothers wrote it in 1972, and Rod had a hit with it in 1975. But of course, his version was absolutely huge, and I'm sure it made the Sutherland Brothers a lot of money. Let's move on to Motley Crue. Smoke in the Boys' Room. Of course, another cover version. Well, of course it will be, that's what we're talking about. So that was originally done by Brownsville Station, and that was in 1973 from their album Yeah. Motley Crue recorded it and released it on their album Theatre of Pain, which is their second album, and it was subsequently released as a single, and I think it was one of their biggest hits in the States anyway. It was a top 40 hit. Smoke in the Boys' Room, Motley Crue, was a cover version, original by Brownsville Station. The Clash, I Fought the Law, was recorded by the Crickets, obviously Buddy Holly's Crickets, and it was on the first album they made after Buddy had died in the aircraft crash. But it wasn't released immediately. It didn't become a hit for the Crickets until 1966. Of course, The Clash had a huge hit with it 13 years later, and it's probably one song that The Clash always get associated with. So yeah, The Clash, I Fought the Law, originally recorded by the Crickets, formerly Buddy Holly's Crickets. Probably quite a famous and well-known cover version, and it's also one of the songs that kicked off Metallica's career, and that is Am I Evil? Was actually a Diamond Head song. Lars Ulrich was actually a friend of Diamond Head. He flew out in 1981 to come and see Diamond Head because he was a fan, stayed with the band for about 6 weeks. They become very good friends and are still friends today. Metallica obviously covered the song. They always cite Diamond Head as one of their influences. And of course, Metallica covering the Am I Evil song has actually helped keep Diamond Head's head above water, shall we say, through royalties. Some other notable cover versions are Judas Priest with Diamonds and Rust, which was a Joan Baez song. Judas Priest released it in 77 and it was on the Sad Wings of Destiny album. Joan Baez had recorded it in 1975. We've also got Leonard Skinner, Call Me the Breeze, 1977. It was from their album Second Helping, and that was originally recorded by J.J. Cowell in 1972. Robert Palmer, Bad Case of Lovin' You, arguably his biggest hit, which was in 1979. That was originally recorded by the artist Moon Martin in 1978, and it was on his debut album, which only was released in Spain and the UK, and it actually failed to chart. So I'm sure Moon Martin, again, is very grateful for Robert Palmer taking up the song, recording it. He's probably made a pretty penny out of it. Marilyn Manson, of course, he's not shy of a couple of covers. He's done Sweet Dreams by the Eurythmics, Personal Jesus, which was a Depeche Mode song, and also Mark Almond, Soft Cell's Tainted Love. And of course, I actually do like all of Marilyn Manson's versions of those songs. They are pretty good, to say the least. Last but not least, Ghost. Ghost tend to do a cover version on most of their albums. Sometimes it's done as an additional track on a special edition, but either way, they tend to do really good renditions of the covers that they do, and they tend to make them their own. Back in May 2023, they actually released a covers EP, and here it is here, Phantom Mime. If you haven't heard this, it's a great little EP. They do See No Evil by Television, Jesus He Knows Me by Genesis, Hanging Around, which is a Stranglers track, Phantom of the Opera, Iron Maiden, and You Don't Need Another Hero, which was Tina Turner from the soundtrack of Mad Max Thunderdome. And 5-track EP of cover versions. We just had a little chat about cover versions, and I'm sure there are loads and loads and loads more cover versions we could look at. I've tried to pick on what might be some obvious and maybe some non-obvious cover versions. Of course, that all depends on the extent of what you know of them. So you may have learned something today. You may have watched and think, yeah, I know all that anyway. If you got this far, at least you did watch it all. Appreciate you watching, and please come back again. Please like, subscribe, and hit that notification button, because it all does help. It really does. So do please come back soon. Please look out for other videos. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.